Here's a question most leaders never think to ask themselves. If your boss stopped checking in tomorrow, if the performance reviews disappeared, the accountability structures vanished, and nobody was tracking your progress, would your output change? For a lot of leaders, the honest answer is yes. And I know because I've lived it. When I stepped out of the corporate world into my own business, I assumed that freedom would make me more productive. What I discovered instead was that I had been relying on my environment to hold me accountable far more than I realized. And without it, I started to drift. Today I want to talk about what I learned coming out of that, why it matters for leaders at every level, and how a simple 3-layer structure changes everything. Now this is a further episode where I return to a past conversation and bring out what else is worth saying. We're building today on episode 5, which was called Turn a Life Plan into Daily Action. If you haven't listened to that one yet, I'd encourage you to start there first. I'll have a link for you. It lays the foundation for everything we're covering today. Welcome back to the Lead with More podcast, where we help today's leaders grow with clarity, character, and purpose. I'm Tom DeBell, and today we're going deeper. Now, in episode 5, I walked through the system I use to translate my long-term life plan into annual and quarterly goals. I also talked about how those quarterly goals roll into weekly and daily planning. But honestly, I moved past that last part pretty quickly. I named it, then kept going. That was intentional at the time. That episode was about the big picture. But the more I've thought about it, the more I realize the connection between the quarterly, weekly, and daily actions, that cascade is actually where most leaders either succeed or fall apart. And it deserves its own conversation. So that's what this is. Now let me start with something that might be a little uncomfortable. Leaders inside organizations are often held accountable by their environment, not by themselves. Your calendar has meetings on it because somebody scheduled them. Your projects have deadlines because someone set them. Your goals get reviewed because your company has a quarterly cycle. That structure is necessary, especially as your company grows, but it can also become a type of crutch, whether or not you really notice it. Here's what I've seen, something I've experienced firsthand. The higher you climb in the leadership framework, the less of that external structure exists. A new manager has a boss checking in weekly. A director has some runway, and a VP has even more. And a CEO, well, that's when their board meets monthly at best. At the highest levels of leadership, accountability is almost entirely self-generated, but the external drivers still exist. When I left corporate and launched into entrepreneurship, I found that wall. No one was scheduling my mornings. No one was following up on my goals. No one noticed if I drifted for a week, and I did drift. Not dramatically, but enough to feel it. Enough to realize I had never actually built the internal structure I thought I had. I was used to the external drivers and had never developed the necessary internal motivations. It became more difficult to hold myself accountable to anything. That realization changed how I think about leadership development. So, here's what I've realized and what I want to talk you through today. Now, I've been using the full focus system developed by Michael Hyatt for years, and I mention it by name because it's worth knowing about. The concepts are now what keep me on track, and the full focus tools are how I personally implement them. The structure works in 3 layers, and the key is that each layer connects directly to the one above it. Nothing floats free. So, layer 1 is the quarterly big 3. At the start of every quarter, I identify up to 3 goals, just 3, that represent the most important progress I can make in the next 90 days. These aren't tasks, they're outcomes built on the smarter framework. They answer this question: 90 days from now, what would make this quarter a genuine win? What would move me forward on my annual goals? 90 days is the right unit of time for this. It's short enough to stay actionable, yet long enough to accomplish something meaningful. When you're working with goals that are due a year from now, it's easy to procrastinate. The 90-day window fixes that. And 3 is the right number, not 10, not 5, 3, because focus is the point. And these 3 represent all domains of life, not just work. Now, layer 2 is the weekly big 3. Every week, I do my weekly preview, usually on a Saturday afternoon or evening. I ask one question: what are the 3 things I need to accomplish this week that move my quarterly big 3 forward? The ones I just talked about. Not everything on my plate, not my full task list. There is a place for those tasks in the system. These are the 3 things that, if done, mean the week was a success relative to where I'm trying to go. This is the layer many leaders skip. They just jump from the quarterly intentions straight to the daily to-do lists and then wonder why they're busy, not making meaningful progress. The weekly layer is that bridge. Without it, the connection breaks down. Now, layer 3 is the daily big 3. Now, at the end of each day, and again, this is a full focus practice, I identify 3 priority tasks for the next day. By naming them the day before, I eliminate the need to spend mental energy on them in the morning. And here's the discipline. I connect those 3 tasks back to my weekly big 3. Not just things I need to do, things that move the weekly priorities forward, which move the quarterly goals forward, which move the annual plan forward. And if you're wondering, yes, there is a place for the daily tasks and smaller items. The full focus system helps me put those items in the proper place in my priorities. When that chain is intact, something shifts. You stop waking up each morning asking what you should do today. You already decided when you are calm, focused, and thinking clearly. The daily execution becomes almost automatic because the direction is already set. Now, I want to come back to something I said earlier because I don't want this to feel like an entrepreneur's problem that doesn't apply to you. The accountability gap I described isn't unique to solo business owners. It shows up every time a leader gains more autonomy. The newly promoted manager who no longer has someone reviewing their daily output, or the team leader working remotely with a boss in a different time zone. Maybe it's the senior leader whose peers assume they have it figured out. Every one of those situations creates a version of this same gap, and most leaders walk into it without a structure to catch them. The cascade I described, quarterly to weekly to daily, is what fills that gap. Not because it's a clever productivity hack, but because it replaces external accountability with something more durable, intentional self-leadership. And here's what I found on the other side of this. It doesn't just improve your output, it changes how you show up. When you know your day is connected to something bigger, you move with more confidence. You make decisions more cleanly. You lead with direction instead of urgency. And the people around you feel that. If you're a solo entrepreneur, that structure is what you can lean on when you're tempted to just drift through your day. When you wake up and wonder what you're doing today, that structure provides the answer. So let me give you something concrete before I close. This week, try this. Take whatever your most important goal is right now, the one you'd say matters most for the next few months, and ask yourself these 3 questions. Number 1, what does progress on this goal look like this week specifically? Number 2, what are the 2 or 3 tasks that, if completed today, move that weekly target forward? And 3, are those tasks actually represented on your calendar or just on a list somewhere? That's the cascade in its simplest form. You don't need a new app or program to start. You just need the habit of connecting today to something that matters. Now, in episode 5, I said that direction precedes discipline. That when you know where you're going, staying consistent becomes easier and more meaningful. And I still believe that. But what I've learned since, and the hard way, is that direction alone isn't enough. You need a structure that carries the direction all the way down to your daily walk. Now, if you'd like to talk about these ideas more, feel free to reach out. I'd love to have that conversation with you. But remember this, the best leaders don't need someone watching over them, and it's not because they were born disciplined. It's because they built something that makes the disciplined path clearer. That's not just a productivity strategy. That is character-driven leadership from the inside out. Now, if this resonates with you, share it with a leader who might need to hear it. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for joining me, and until next time, keep leading with more.